Since you're getting your ovaries removed, you won't be able to have children, right? And I don't need you anymore, so will you divorce me? My husband, Mike, handed me divorce papers. Wait a minute, what are you talking about? This is no time for jokes, and I'm not going to tolerate this. A few days ago, I was rushed to the hospital with severe abdominal pain. The tests showed a possibility of ovarian cancer, and I was scheduled for surgery the next day. I'm not joking. I've put up with this long enough. Living with my in-laws and dealing with their harassment. I've been the one enduring all of it. Why do I have to be handed divorce papers now? Especially when I'm about to have surgery tomorrow. Anger, sadness, and despair welled up inside me as I covered my face with my hands. Then, to make matters worse, I heard my in-laws' voices. A useless woman who can't have children should just step aside. It's pathetic to cling to a younger man like Mike at your age. These past 3 years have been a waste of time for Mike. Just disappear from our lives already. Their words deeply hurt me. I bit my lip, trying not to cry, and with my right hand trembling, I held it steady with my left as I signed my name. All right, now Ann and I are strangers, Mike said, pocketing the divorce papers. As he left, he added, Actually, I've been getting close to a woman at work recently. She's young, cute, and healthy. It's good I won't be passing on the genes of an unattractive, middle-aged woman. I was speechless at his cruel words. Despite everything I went through, I never imagined what would happen when I met Mike again 3 years later. My name is Ann. I married Mike, who is 2 years younger than me, 2 years ago. I met Mike at work when I was 38, and his passionate pursuit led to our marriage. I had already given up on getting married, so at first, I firmly refused Mike's advances. There are plenty of younger women out there for you. I like independent, mature women like you, Ann. I'm 38, so I might not be able to have kids. I don't want kids. I want to be with you, Ann. Mike insisted that no one else would do, and I finally agreed to marry him under one condition. Just promise me one thing. I'm not obsessed with having kids at this age. Let's not try to force it. Mike agreed, and we got married. Mike, who had always lived with his parents, insisted on continuing to live with them after we got married. I'm their only son, and I think I'll need to take care of them someday. Can we live with them from the start? Living with others at my age was a bit daunting, but since Mike was willing to marry me. Thinking this way, I agreed to live with Mike's parents, Bob and Nancy. However, I quickly realized this decision was a mistake. And I'd like you to handle the shopping, cooking, dishwashing, taking out the trash, and cleaning the shower room. Why should I be the only one doing all this work when there are 4 adults living here? I couldn't voice my concerns, but from the beginning, I felt distrustful of them. They seemed to see me as their housekeeper. And I want to have pot au feu tonight. And the entrance is getting dirty, please clean it. And could you iron my shirt? What kind of life had they been leading before I arrived? Since the house wasn't particularly dirty when I moved in, someone must have been doing the chores. This realization made me even more frustrated. Moreover, Mike's parents were eagerly anticipating their first grandchild now that their only son was married. You're almost 40, so you should hurry up and start fertility treatments. Well, we actually decided we don't need to have children. What are you talking about? There's no point in getting married if you don't have children. They couldn't accept the idea of not having children and blamed me for it. We decided not to stress too much about having kids because we're not young anymore. Mike remembered our agreement and tried to convince his parents. But they were relentless. No matter how much Mike persuaded them, after a few days, they'd start asking about grandchildren again. One day, Mike came into the room with his face red. Mom told me to get checked at the hospital because it might be my fault that and isn't getting pregnant. Hurt by the implication that his manhood was in question, Mike started taking his frustration out on me. It's not my fault, Mike. You're the one who's upset. Though I didn't say it out loud, my unease grew daily. I'll prove it's N's fault we can't have children. We're going to the hospital. In the end, Mike insisted on this. But I had no intention of undergoing fertility treatments. So I ignored Mike's demand and lied about being busy with work to escape from the house. Mom, listen to this. The only saving grace was that my parents lived near my workplace. Before going home, I would stop by their house and talk about my worries. My parents, Tom and Kate, who were enjoying their retirement, were always there for me. I wondered how they felt seeing their daughter, who had just gotten married in her late 30s, venting about her in-laws and husband. At first, I felt guilty, but they always listened patiently. And what happened today? Our neighbor gave us some good wine. Let's have some together. Their casual, light-hearted attitude made it easier for me to vent. Why does everyone equate marriage with children? It's the woman who has to go through all the challenges of pregnancy and childbirth. And then there are the husband's parents, constantly interfering. Everyone's thinking is old-fashioned, especially as they get older. I've been told I have a gentle demeanor. Tom, you've become kinder with age. Maybe Mike is the same. One day, we'll laugh about this situation. Their encouragement kept me going. Knowing they were on my side gave me the strength to continue my marriage. One day, on my way home from work, I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my lower abdomen. What is this pain? Cold sweat broke out as I couldn't stand and collapsed on the sidewalk. I tried to find my smartphone to call for help, but my hands were trembling too much. Luckily, a passerby noticed and called an ambulance for me. At the hospital, after various tests, I was told I might have ovarian cancer. Can you contact your family immediately? The nurse asked, and I called Mike. It was past 7 p.m., and Mike should have been home, but he didn't answer despite my multiple attempts. I had no choice but to call my mother. I'm coming right away, don't worry, Anne. My mother reassured me and came to the hospital with my father. Seeing my parents, I couldn't hold back my tears. Even at 40, I wasn't strong enough to face cancer alone. My mother gently patted my back. Together with my parents, I listened to the doctor's explanation. The right ovary has a high likelihood of cancer. We recommend removing both ovaries and the uterus. Does that mean I won't be able to get pregnant anymore? Yes. And, do you wish to have children? Well, I stammered. At 41, I didn't particularly desire children that desperately. However, in a situation where my in-laws and Mike were so eager for a child, I felt a momentary resistance to making myself incapable of having children. Are there other treatment options if I want to get pregnant? I asked hesitantly. You need to prioritize your own health, Anne. My parents said, looking worried. The doctor looked at me intently and spoke quietly. There are other methods, but whether they're suitable for you will require further testing. I'm sure my parents were surprised that I was considering pregnancy. I was surprised too. Though I couldn't put my feelings into words, there was a profound sense of emptiness at the thought of having both ovaries. And my uterus removed without ever having given birth. Maybe if I didn't give up and tried my best, Mike, Bob, and Nancy might start seeing me in a different light. The thought crossed my mind. I can't completely give up on the idea of pregnancy. Can you leave one ovary? I asked. The doctor looked me in the eye and nodded. I understand, Anne. But depending on the progression, we might still need to remove everything. As a result of our discussion, the surgery to remove the tumor on my right ovary was scheduled for 5 days later. If the cancer was confined to the right ovary, we would monitor the situation with the addition of chemotherapy. If there is any metastasis, you'll need to give up on pregnancy entirely, the doctor said, and I nodded firmly. My parents, thankfully, supported my decision without saying anything, quietly standing by me. My mother visited me daily in the hospital, comforting me as I struggled with my feelings. Have you been able to reach Mike? No, he doesn't answer the phone, and even though I messaged him about my hospitalization, there's no response. I just don't understand Mike. My parents fell silent, realizing how strained my relationship with my husband had become. He's probably busy. Tom and I have plenty of time, so don't worry about anything. I'll bring your favorite grapes later, my mother said brightly, trying to lift my spirits. I was deeply touched by my parents' warmth. I decided to face the surgery for their sake. Then, the day before my surgery, Mike and my in-laws came into the hospital room. I glared at the three of them. Why did you ignore my calls and messages? Mike laughed and replied, Seems like you've been through a lot. Good job. I was speechless, expecting him to apologize for not getting in touch. How could he speak so indifferently when his wife was about to undergo surgery? Anger surged within me as I glared even harder at the three of them. Seeing my reaction, they whispered among themselves and then looked back at me, smirking maliciously. Get out! I don't want to see your faces! Unable to contain myself, I yelled at them, forgetting that we were in a hospital. Mike walked over to me and held out a piece of paper. If you're having your ovaries removed, you won't be able to have children, right? And we don't need you anymore, so will you divorce me? The paper Mike handed me was a divorce application. What are you talking about? This isn't the time for jokes, and I won't forgive you for this. This is no joke. I've been putting up with you all this time. I've been the one enduring all this time. Why do I have to be handed divorce papers now? Especially when I'm about to have surgery tomorrow. Anger, sadness, and despair welled up inside me as I covered my face with my hands. As if to add insult to injury, I heard the voices of my in-laws. A useless woman who can't bear children should just leave quietly. It's pathetic for a woman her age to cling to a younger husband. These 3 years have been a waste of time for Mike. Just disappear from our sight already. Their words hurt me deeply. I felt foolish for choosing a treatment that preserved the possibility of pregnancy for the sake of these 3 people. How could they say such things? While I was in a daze, Mike placed the divorce application and a pen on the bedside table. All that's left is for you to sign, Anne. I'll even submit it for you, so be grateful, he said, forcing the pen into my right hand. It's not that I was entirely against getting divorced. In fact, the thought of living with my in-laws, enduring their spiteful comments until I could have a child, seemed unbearable. But for the past 3 years, I had endured their tyranny. I endured it because we were family. Yet, they only saw me as a childbearing machine. Not only did they fail to support me during my cancer diagnosis and upcoming surgery, but they also hit me with divorce papers. My resentment towards the 3 of them was overwhelming. I bit my lip, holding back tears, and with my left hand steadying my trembling right hand, I signed my name. Now, Anne and I are strangers, Mike said, pocketing the divorce application. The 3 of them, looking satisfied, left the hospital room. Finally, Mike turned around and said, Actually, there's this woman at work I've been getting close to. She's young, cute, and healthy. And you can't compete with her at all. Oh, I'm glad I didn't pass on the genes of an unattractive, middle-aged woman. When I glared at him, Mike laughed and said, "I'm so glad to be divorcing a middle-aged woman." Then he walked away. The now silent hospital room echoed with my sobs. Mike and his family had made me suffer even more while I was already feeling crushed by the anxiety of my illness. I buried my face in the pillow and cried hard. I don't know how much time had passed. I heard a knock at the door and hastily hid my face under the blanket, pretending to be asleep. "Anne? You're sleeping, aren't you? I bought some grapes. Eat them later, okay?" It was my mother, who usually entered the room without knocking. She quietly came in and placed the grapes on the table. "I'll move all your stuff to our place today. Once you're discharged, you'll have to help with the laundry, okay? Oh, and Tom started cooking too. Look forward to his meals. I'll come back tomorrow morning," she said, gently stroking my head before leaving the room. Without saying anything, my mother seemed to understand everything. Maybe she had overheard the conversation about the divorce outside the room. Feeling the infinite warmth and kindness of my mother, I started crying again. After crying for a while, I felt a bit relieved and lifted my head. I looked at the grapes my mother had brought and said, "Mom, thank you." Eating the grapes, I pictured my parents' smiling faces. I need to get better soon and repay my parents. To put their minds at ease, I will do my best to undergo the surgery. I had made up my mind. The next day, I had the surgery and my right ovary was removed. As expected, it was cancerous, but fortunately, my left ovary was normal. The next step was to undergo chemotherapy to eliminate any remaining cancer cells. The first round of chemotherapy was tough. The drugs didn't agree with me, and the side effects were severe. I couldn't eat anything, my hair fell out, and I could feel myself wasting away. But my parents were always there to encourage me. "Last night, there was a meteor shower, your favorite. I saw 5 shooting stars and made a wish for you to get better." I couldn't believe that my father, who had no interest in shooting stars, stayed up late just to watch the sky. I felt the love of my family more than ever. Thanks to them, I was able to stay strong and determined to fight for their sake. My hospital stay lasted 6 months, after which I transitioned to outpatient care. Dust gathers quickly if someone isn't using the place. "I'm glad you're back, Anne," my parents said as they took me back to my childhood home without ever mentioning the divorce. Initially, I couldn't return to work, so I spent some time recovering at home. Supported by my parents, I gradually regained my strength and sense of self. 2 years passed since the surgery. Before my illness, I didn't think much about my daily life, but after experiencing cancer, I became committed to maintaining a healthy and orderly lifestyle. "That was a good walk," I said as I returned home from my usual morning stroll. The mail carrier handed me a Christmas card just as I was about to enter the house. It was a Christmas card with a baby's photo. The sender was Mike. While I was battling my illness, Mike, who had abandoned me, found his happiness and even had a child, fulfilling his parents' wishes. I wondered what he hoped to achieve by informing me of this. Seeing the card didn't make me feel good, of course, but Mike was already a stranger to me. There was no need to waste my emotions on someone who no longer mattered. I had moved on. If my parents found this card, it would definitely cause them distress. I tore it up and threw it in the trash without mentioning it to them. Eventually, I returned to work. The company was close to my parents' house, allowing me to commute without overexerting myself. "How was the healthy lunch?" "It was delicious, thank you as always." For my work, my dad made a nutritious and balanced lunch for me every day. I was amazed because he never cooked when I lived at home. "Dad, you're really good at cooking. Did you always know how to cook? When I asked my mom in a low voice, she shook her head. Tom was excited to make lunches for you, and he's gotten really good at cooking over the past few months. Watching him hum a tune while preparing my lunch, I could see how happy he was that I was healthy. Parents always give unconditional love to their children, no matter how old they get. I wanted to be a parent who could give unconditional love like my dad and mom. Thinking about this made me smile. Even though I had one ovary left, it was unfortunately unnecessary for a single woman like me. But I had to stay healthy for my parents. And one day, I would repay them for their love. I made up my mind again. I was living a healthy and peaceful life, but one day, Mike and his parents suddenly appeared in front of me. They were waiting for me in front of my parents' house as I came back from work. Anne. When Mike saw me, he whispered my name, and the three of them apologized deeply, not caring about the people around. It was my fault. Please give me another chance. What was he saying now? Besides, Mike already had a child. I was furious with Mike's irresponsibility and his parents who came with him to apologize. As I glared at them silently, Mike began to speak slowly. I was deceived. According to Mike, he had married a young woman he met at work right after our divorce. Because she was already pregnant. I was furious to learn that he had cheated on me while we were still married. Then, just as the Christmas card said, they had a son and thought they were living a happy life. But it turned out his current wife was seeing another man besides Mike. Mike, who became suspicious because she always took her calls outside and never let go of her smartphone, finally hired a detective and found out. To make matters worse, the son Mike thought was his was actually the child of her lover. When Mike confronted his wife, she easily admitted to the affair and the child. And then she laughed and said, "Of course, I'd prefer the genes of my young boyfriend over a middle-aged man like you." Sounds like a line I've heard somewhere before. Mike hung his head when I muttered, "I'm really sorry. I finally understand how awful we were to you, and..." Following Mike, his parents also apologized. "We won't say anything about kids anymore, so please live with us again?" Dad and Mom are really sorry too. How selfish can they be? After all they put me through, I couldn't understand how they had the nerve to show up in front of me. And I didn't even feel like talking to them. Just then, my parents and a man, who had heard the commotion at the front door, came out of the house. "A guest? Huh? What are you doing here?" When my mother saw Mike apologizing deeply in front of me, she shrieked. The man, who was behind my parents, was startled by my mother's attitude, but in the next moment, he understood something and rushed to my side. "Stay away from my wife." He then stood in front of Mike and his parents, shielding me from them. Mike and his parents were stunned. "My wife? What do you mean, Anne? This is a joke, right?" "Why would you think it's a joke?" I started to fight back. "Sorry, but I married him. Thanks to you asking for a divorce back then. I was able to meet someone who loves me for who I am, not just as a baby-making machine." I took his arm and showed it off to Mike and his parents. He was a colleague at work who had taken over my duties while I was on leave. Even after I returned to work, he continued to help me so I wouldn't overexert myself, and gradually, we began to spend more time together. "When I'm with and I realize the little joys in life. Please marry me." He accepted everything about me, and I accepted his proposal. We registered our marriage 6 months ago. "Wait, isn't that a maternity mark on your bag?" At that moment, Nancy screamed when she spotted the maternity mark on my bag. Mike glared at me when he saw the maternity mark. "You said you were going to have your ovaries removed. Did you lie to me?" How low can you go, lying like that? Do you enjoy playing the tragic heroine? Same as before, Mike's parents joined in and started to criticize me. It was you who unilaterally demanded a divorce without listening to my story, wasn't it? Since you wanted a child so badly, I decided to keep one ovary to increase the chance of pregnancy, but you never listened, did you? Recalling the situation at that time, I got angry. Sensing my anger, he stroked my back to calm me down. My wife has endured tough chemotherapy and is still fighting hard with her remaining ovary. Please stay away from my precious wife from now on. If you break this promise, we will take legal action. Intimidated by his forceful words, Mike and his parents backed away silently. We came here intending to offer Anne a place as a housekeeper to look after her health, let her struggle with late pregnancy, Mike said spitefully before fleeing with his parents. My parents quickly rushed to my side. And are you okay? If they show up again, I won't forgive them. Their faces were filled with anger, having seen me go through such a tough time. I will always protect you. Tom, Kate, please rest assured. His strong words finally gave both me and my parents a sense of relief. Later, my mother heard from somewhere that Mike had also made his second wife live with his parents, just like he did with me. From Mike's story, it seemed like they were completely deceived by his second wife, but that wasn't the whole truth. I had thought they treated me coldly because I couldn't get pregnant. And thus, they were probably kind to his pregnant second wife, but that wasn't the case. They didn't treat her well despite her pregnancy. They made her do household chores and carry heavy loads. Some neighbors, seeing her struggling with a big belly while shopping for groceries for 4 adults, even helped carry her bags out of concern. Of course, it was wrong of her to cheat on Mike and have another man's child. However, Mike and his parents were so harsh that no one could feel any sympathy for them. Marrying 2 women, making them live with his parents and treating them like housekeepers. And then divorcing them in a short period. Such bad rumors about Mike and his parents spread in the neighborhood, making everyone avoid them. Even so, they continued to search desperately for another spouse to take care of them. But whenever Mike brought a woman home, the neighbors would tell her about these rumors. Thanks to this, no more women fell victim to Mike, and the 3 of them now live quietly, being looked at strangely by the neighbors. Was their house a hoarder's den before and lived there? No, it was fairly clean. I think Nancy managed the house well when there wasn't a daughter-in-law around. I see. My mother nodded in agreement. Recently, Nancy's health has been poor, probably due to her age. Mike is apparently taking care of Nancy while working, but the 2 men can't keep up, and the house has started to deteriorate recently. It's their own responsibility. Those 3 blood-related family members will have to manage on their own. They should live the rest of their lives reflecting on how they've treated their spouses. Mom, I'm home. My daughter and husband returned. Welcome back. I've been waiting for you. Let's play. My daughter saw her mother and joyfully ran into her arms. She turned 2 this year. When she was born, my husband and parents cried and thanked me. There were times when I wondered why I chose to keep 1 ovary, and I felt really sorry for my parents who quietly supported my decision. But now, I have no regrets at all. Because I've been blessed with such a wonderful family. After our daughter was born, the 3 of us moved into an apartment near my parents' house. My parents often came over with various excuses, like they made too much food or received extra vegetables from a friend. Even though having another child at my age seems impossible, my parents play with my daughter so much that she never feels lonely. Which is a great help to me. Grandma, you're having dinner with us, right? Sure. And is that okay? Of course. Call Dad over too. Thank you. We have some grapes, so I'll ask Tom to bring them over. Ordinary and warm conversations. Despite the harassment, divorce, and illness I once endured, I now lead a happy life thanks to my parents and my current husband. My life shines even brighter thanks to my daughter, who came into my life just as I had nearly given up on becoming a parent. Who could show unconditional love like my father and mother? Mom, this is for you. My daughter placed an acorn she found in the park into my hand. Thank you. I'll treasure it. I hugged her tightly. I want to continue cherishing these little moments of happiness with my family, who all care for each other deeply. Could you move out of the way? You're in my way. Wait a minute. With that, my stepdaughter Susan kicked me as I was crouched down, cleaning the hallway. I lost my balance and fell on my bottom. This happened every day, and she always chose moments when my husband Matty was away to harass me. Hey, why did you marry my dad? What? You must be in it for the money. He makes quite a bit, doesn't he? That's not true at all. That's definitely not true. I didn't even know what he did for a living or his income until right before we got married. But whatever. It doesn't matter because you'll be out of here soon enough. What are you planning? I heard the front door open and Maddie came home. You're home early today. Yeah, I have another business trip lined up. It'll be for a week. When are you leaving? It's not for a while yet. I felt an unsettling gaze from behind me, making my skin crawl. Even though there was still time before my husband's trip, I ended up breaking my leg at the worst possible time. I managed to get discharged from the hospital, but that was just the beginning of the nightmare. Then Matty left for his trip. Susan had been waiting eagerly for this moment. I'm going on a trip, so give me some money. What? I don't have any money for you. Don't lie. I know you have it. She opened the third drawer in the closet and started rummaging through it. See? I knew it. I'll take this for my trip. She found the $10,000 I had saved for emergencies. Wait! I was discharged, but I still needed crutches. I managed to stand up and tried to chase after her. She grabbed my crutch and smashed it against the wall until it broke in two. Why would you do that? We don't need a fake like you. Just try not to die or something. And with that, she left me in the second-floor room and went on her trip, leaving me alone. I couldn't take it anymore. A voice inside me whispered, telling me to get revenge. 7 days later, Susan came back and seemed to sense something was wrong as she hurriedly ran up to the second floor. Thus began my revenge. I am Rose, and I'm 45 years old this year. I'm remarried and living with my husband Matty and stepdaughter Susan. When I first got married, I thought we would have a happy life together. I'm sure anyone would have thought the same. Now, I find myself thinking more about when I first met Matty. How did it come to this? We got married a year ago, but before that, we were a shopkeeper and a customer. I had just gotten divorced and honestly had almost no will to live. At that time, I was running a small cafe that I had opened with my ex-husband by myself. Please cheer up. Easier said than done. Matty was a regular at my shop. And I got divorced too, you know. Really? But didn't you say you were working things out? Yeah, but I never thought she was cheating on me. She seemed so nice, though. I vaguely remembered her face because she had come to the shop with him before. With 2 people, no less. I almost collapsed in shock. That's just unbelievable. We comforted each other by sharing our troubles. We seemed to get along well, and soon we started meeting outside the shop. At first, it was just for meals, but then we started going on trips on the weekends. By the way, you have a daughter, right? Is she okay with this? She's in high school now, so she's fine. But still, she's a girl. Oh, that's right. You didn't have any kids, did you, Rose? No, I didn't. I thought it would be rude to pry any further into someone else's family, so I never brought it up. Although there was no explicit confession, we had spent almost a year together, so we were practically a couple. Well, I wasn't too concerned about defining it that strictly. Then, one day. Hey, we've been together for a while now, right? Yeah. And we share similar values, don't we? I mean, I think our ways of thinking are quite alike. That might be true. So, I think we're compatible. I think so too. That's why I believe we should be together more. Wait a minute. What are you trying to say? Will you marry me? Marry you. Is it a no? It's not that. I couldn't answer right away. I couldn't stop thinking about my ex-husband. My divorce was due to emotional and physical abuse. And when he realized I might press charges, he left without a trace, leaving behind the divorce papers. Of course, I didn't think Maddie was capable of anything like that. I want to be with you forever, Rose. I feel at home with you. And I won't ask anything from you. Maddie continued to passionately explain how much I meant to him. I've never been pursued so intensely before. Are you okay? Sorry. I got too excited. Maddie's breathing had become heavy. Seeing him like that, I found it oddly endearing. About my answer, if it's okay with you. Really? That's great. But my worries didn't end there. I had never met Maddie's daughter. That opportunity came soon enough. Let me introduce you properly. This is my daughter, Susan. Nice to meet you. Likewise. I'm Susan. So, Dad has decided to marry this lovely lady, Rose. Is that so? Congratulations. Thanks. Looks like we'll need to move now. The introduction was surprisingly brief. Then, preparations for the move began in earnest. I never asked before, but what do you do for work? Come to think of it, I never mentioned it. I'm an interpreter. An interpreter? I never would have guessed. I know, right? Maddie speaks 5 languages fluently. I might have to travel sometimes, which could be inconvenient. That's fine. Thanks. I appreciate it. The move went smoothly, and our life as a family of 3 began. Susan, who had been quiet at first, started to open up little by little. Rose, Mom, do you mind if I call you that? You don't have to force yourself. Call me whatever feels comfortable. Thank you. So, why did you decide to marry Dad? Because he passionately proposed for hours? Really? Dad did that? From what I heard, Maddie was serious and didn't joke much at home. However, the Maddie I knew was full of humor. As we grew closer, Susan started college. But then, her behavior began to change. Susan, about your father's upcoming business trip. She used to respond normally, but now. Could you please not talk to me? What happened? You weren't like this before. Huh? Do you seriously not get it? It didn't take long to understand Susan's true nature. I'm leaving for the trip. I'll be back the day after tomorrow. Got it. Take care. See you. It was the first time Susan and I were alone together. Ever since her sudden change in attitude, I had found it difficult to interact with her. Ever since starting college, things haven't been going smoothly for Susan. I'm not sure why. Susan was the first to confront me. Hey, don't get so full of yourself, okay? I'm not trying to. Oh, really? Anyone can see it from how Dad always talks about you. That doesn't mean I'm getting full of myself. It's your smug attitude that pisses me off. What's your goal? Cozying up to Dad? What are you even talking about? Susan kept complaining nonstop. Listening to her, I realized one thing. She really, really likes Maddie. Are you jealous, maybe? There was a brief moment of silence. What? Jealous of you? Don't be ridiculous, I'm not a kid anymore. At the time, I thought I'd hit the nail on the head. But later, I would regret saying that. Susan locked herself in her room and wouldn't come out. Even knocking on the door didn't get a response. The next day, she said, I'm going out with my friends. Can I have some money? Money? Didn't Dad give you some? It's not enough. Then let's talk about it when you get back. Susan scratched her head and banged on the table. Did you not hear me? I said I'm going out with my friends. Just give me the money already. Knowing she wouldn't give up, I handed her some money. Will this be enough? Only $100? Aren't your store profits good? Can't you give me more? This is all I can give. Do you want me to tell Dad? Looking frustrated, Susan stormed out. I let out a sigh. How did things get this way? When Maddie returned from his business trip, Susan acted as if nothing had happened. How was it with you two? This was your first time alone, right? As I tried to answer, Susan interrupted. It was fine. We got along well, didn't we, Mom? She flashed me a bright smile. Yes, that's right. Good. I was a bit worried, but it sounds like everything went well. Dad, you worry too much. Oh, by the way, Rose, I got you a souvenir. A souvenir? Yes, here it is. It was a bottle of the limited edition essential oil I had wanted. Thank you. Isn't this a limited edition? I just happened to find it. At that moment, I felt Susan's angry stare. Maybe she was boiling with rage inside. What about Susan? Did you get her anything? Oh, right. I almost forgot. Here you go, Susan. The bag was noticeably bigger than mine. Susan's eyes sparkled as she saw it. Thanks, Dad. But when she looked inside, her eyes went dull. Didn't you say you liked it before? That's why I got it. Thanks. I'm happy. Her words didn't match her expression. Sorry, I'm pretty tired. I'm going to bed. Okay. Good night. As soon as Maddie went to the bedroom, Susan threw her gift on the floor. What are you doing? Why did you get something expensive, and I got this childish stuffed toy? Susan's gift was a large stuffed toy of a popular character among young people. Why don't we switch? What? Just give it to me. Stop it. Susan tried to snatch the bottle of essential oil from my hand. Dad's going to wake up. Then just give it to me. We wrestled for a while, but I couldn't match the strength of a teenager. The bottle slipped from my hand and fell to the floor. Being fragile, it shattered, spilling the oil. This is your fault for not giving it to me sooner. Susan shifted all the blame onto me and retreated to her room. I gathered the shattered pieces of the fallen bottle. Thankfully, I managed to save a small amount of the oil and carefully placed it back into the box. I could smell the lavender filling the living room. This wasn't how I wanted to experience its scent. I kept scrubbing the floor over and over again. The next morning, Maddie noticed the scent too. Did you use it already? Yeah, but maybe I used too much. No, I think it's fine. I like the smell too. Then Susan walked into the living room. Good morning, Susan. How do you like the scent? It's nice. Do you have classes today? Yeah, I do. Are you enjoying your classes? They're okay, I guess. Although she looked annoyed when she woke up, Susan started to smile while talking with Maddie. Soon it became time to go to the store. I should get going. Right, it's that time already. I'll come with you. Just give me a moment. Susan started to get irritated because their conversation was interrupted. Her frustration was directed at me. I could sense it even without looking at her face. All right, let's go. Yeah. Susan, don't be late. We arrived at the store and immediately began preparations. Thankfully, we had a lot of customers today. This was all thanks to Maddie's advice and financial support. I initially refused, but he insisted it was for both our benefit. We closed the store at 7 p.m., and while I was preparing to close the store, I encountered an unexpected person. Long time no see, Rose. I turned around instantly, recognizing the familiar voice. Why are you here? This is my store too, remember? It's mine now. Leave. I've changed. I want to be with you again. I remarried. I can't be with you. Even if I weren't married, I wouldn't want to be with you. Feeling the situation escalating, I pushed Nicholas, my ex-husband, away and tried to leave the store. But he grabbed my arm and pulled me back. I can't forget about you. Nicholas began to run his tongue along my neck. I felt disgusted, my skin crawling. Then I heard the sound of a camera shutter. I couldn't see the person, but they quickly ran off. I took advantage of the distraction to push Nicholas away and escape. Don't ever come here again. I'll call the police. All right, all right. He left. But my heart was still pounding. I never expected him to show up here. I closed the store and went home immediately. I'm back. No one responded. Maddie had mentioned he would be late. Susan wasn't back from school yet either. I sat down and started thinking about what to do next. I needed to figure out how to handle Nicholas. As I was deep in thought, someone walked into the living room. I looked up and saw Susan standing there. A slight smile on her face. Susan. Can't believe you were doing that behind Dad's back. What do you mean? It's too late to deny it now. Susan showed me her phone screen. It was a photo from when Nicholas was bothering me at the store. So that shadow was you, Susan. This is solid proof of your affair. If I show this to Dad, you're done. You're misunderstanding something. Making excuses now? It's not an excuse. The man in the photo isn't a lover. Then who is he? Explain it. That man is. I could hear your voices outside. What's going on? Just then, Maddie came back home. Hey, listen to this. This unfaithful woman was cheating at the store. Cheating? Look at this. She showed Maddie the photo too. See? Just like I said. This is. Susan was struggling to hold back her laughter. But then, are you okay? Yeah. Did anything else happen to you? No. When I said I'd call the police, he ran away. I see. What are you talking about? Susan, did you really think they were cheating when you saw this photo? Anyone would think so if they see something like this. Isn't this man Rose's ex-husband? I had never shown Nicholas's photos, but Maddie figured it out. Exactly. He wants to get back together with me. We need to come up with a plan. She could be lying. Enough. If you believe that, fine. You'll find out eventually. Later, we consulted the police, who agreed to keep an eye on the store. Susan's photos came in handy at this time. Additionally, we found out that Nicholas was already wanted for fraud. Since that incident, Susan had calmed down. Susan also seemed to change and started being kind to me. It felt like we were back to the early days of her marriage with Maddie. Mom, I have a favor to ask. A favor? There's a friend's birthday coming up. I was wondering if I could use the store. I don't mind. Thanks. She had never relied on me this much before. So I let go of the past and trusted her words completely. I couldn't foresee the deeper darkness ahead. Susan continued to speak kindly to me, asking about the store, my relationship with Maddie, and things she had never asked before. When this continued daily, even I started feeling suspicious. And then, the day arrived. I'll come over after the store closes. All right. Is something happening today? Susan mentioned celebrating a friend's birthday. Right, she did. Just don't overdo it. I won't. I closed the store and waited for Susan and her friends. Susan arrived with 5 people. But everyone except Susan were men. I prepared the drinks they brought, and the party started. Mom, have a drink. It's a special day. I'm fine. I'm not a strong drinker. I had only sipped alcohol occasionally before. I refused, but they insisted, so I drank a glass of beer. It had been years since I last drank, and I felt dizzy for a moment. Come on, it's a celebration. Drink more. I lost count of how many drinks I had and found myself sitting on the couch. Susan was saying something, but I couldn't make it out. Then, I felt my clothes being removed. My vision slowly cleared. What are you doing? The source of the discomfort was my clothes being taken off. They were now trying to remove my skirt. I tried to escape, but I was held down. Susan! Stop this right now. Why? Was it all a lie? Of course. By the way, these guys are interested in people like you. They came right away when I posted online. And the friends you mentioned? All lies. I don't even know their names. I struggled, but they were too strong. They took off my skirt, leaving me in my underwear. Look this way. We're recording this. Do you think you can get away with this? Oh, right. With the sound, it would definitely be discovered, so I'll have to erase it later. Why are you doing this? I'm going to show this to Dad. To get him to divorce you. We don't need you around here. You're too loud. Maybe I should just shut you up. Stop it now. You're really annoying. Just do whatever you want with her. In the end, I was stripped naked and assaulted by the men. From that point, I have no memory. When I came to, the store was empty, and all I felt was a wave of nausea. I quickly put my clothes back on and headed home. You're late. Where's Susan? She's already back. I see. I took a shower, trying to wash away the feeling of those men. There was no way I could tell anyone about this. This was exactly what Susan had planned. After that, I had no choice but to accept whatever Susan did to me. You're in the way. Can you move? Wait a minute. Susan then kicked me as I was crouched down, cleaning the hallway. I lost my balance and fell on my backside. Hey! Why did you marry Dad? What? It was for the money, right? He's pretty well off. That's not true. That's definitely not true. Until we got married, I didn't even know what Maddie's job was or how much he made. But I guess it doesn't matter. You'll be leaving soon anyway. What are you planning? I heard the front door open. Maddie had come home. You're home early today? Yeah, another business trip came up. I'll be gone for a week. When do you leave? Not for a while yet. I felt a nasty gaze on my back, sending chills down my spine. Then I ended up breaking my bones. This was Susan's doing. She had pushed me from behind as I was going down the stairs at home. I tumbled all the way down, and when I looked up, there was Susan, smiling like she was possessed by a demon. I'll call an ambulance for you. But you have to say you fell by yourself. I was taken by ambulance and had to undergo surgery. My left leg was fixed with bolts, and my right ankle was also broken, making it impossible to walk. Are you okay? Don't push yourself too hard. Thank you. I heard you fell down the stairs. That's right. Susan was watching me from behind Maddie. Yeah, I was really stupid. Just take your time to heal. Susan would sometimes visit, pretending to check on me, but she was only there to mock me. How are you feeling? About the same. Just make sure you rest. Not that you can do much while you're unable to walk. I recovered enough to manage walking with crutches. But even after leaving the hospital, I couldn't feel at ease. Soon enough, the day came for Maddie to go on his business trip. I'm sorry to leave you when you're having a hard time, Rose. It's your job. You can't help it. Susan, make sure you help her out. Sure, leave it to me. Maddie left for his trip. Susan had been waiting for this moment. As soon as Maddie was gone. I'm going on a trip. Give me some money. What? I don't have any money for that. Don't lie. I know you do. She opened the third drawer in the closet and rummaged through it. See? I knew it. I'll take this as my travel fund. Susan had found the $10,000 I had saved for emergencies. Wait. How did you know about that? Like I'd tell you. Did you go through my stuff? Who knows? Judging by her expression, it was true. She must have left it there to crush my hopes right in front of me. I managed to stand up and tried to follow Susan. Hurry up and hand it over. She grabbed my crutch, smashing it against the wall repeatedly until it broke in half. What are you doing? No one needs someone fake like you. Just try not to die. With that, she left me alone in the upstairs room. Susan left for a trip, and I was left all alone. I couldn't stand it anymore. A voice inside me whispered for revenge. Without a crutch, it's tough, but I can still stand. I thought about contacting Maddie, but Susan had taken my phone, so I had no way to reach out. However, I wasn't about to give up here. I managed to get downstairs, using an umbrella as a makeshift cane, and asked for help from the neighbors. I borrowed a phone and contacted Maddie. What? Is this true? It might be hard to believe, but yes. I'm coming home right away. Just hold on a bit longer. Maddie returned quickly. What happened? I explained everything Susan had done to me since our marriage. Finally, I mustered the courage to tell him about the incident at the store. Maddie's body trembled either with anger or shock. How could she? I can't forgive this, even if she's my daughter. Will you help me? What? If your anger is real, help me get back at her. Okay. What do we need to do? Well, here's the plan. We prepared and waited for Susan to return. 7 days later, Susan came back, completely unaware. I'm home. Well, of course there's no one to greet me. I wonder how she's doing. Maybe she's really dead. As she started to go upstairs, she noticed something strange. What is this smell? It's like something's rotten. Susan opened the bedroom door. She let out a scream that echoed throughout the house. Maddie and I quietly headed towards the bedroom. Peeking inside, we saw something that resembled a person lying on the bed. What do I do? Dump it somewhere. But then it might be found right away. Hearing this, Maddie burst into the room. What are you doing there? Dad? Why are you here? Weren't you on a business trip? I got a call that you were up to no good. Huh? But... Susan looked at the bed. She genuinely thought I was dead. I'm right here. How are you alive? Then what's this? Oh, that's something Maddie and I set up. But I can't believe you were thinking of dumping it. How far gone are you? While looking for something that resembled a person, we found a love doll. It was quite expensive, but we didn't care about the cost. Is this what happens when you still can't become independent from your parent until your age? Well then, I'll expose the video. Go ahead. Susan took out her phone and showed Maddie the video. But Maddie showed no reaction. So what? Isn't this too much? This should show how crazy she is. You should divorce her. You're the crazy one. I know everything. How? Did she tell you? Yes, and the store has security cameras. Everything was recorded. Everything you instructed them to do. No way! Susan had no escape now. What you did is a crime. Those men too. You've really messed up. I'm tempted to give you the punishment you deserve myself. When Susan saw Maddie's face, she collapsed to the floor, as if her legs had given out. I've already contacted the police. You might get arrested. Give it up. You're not my daughter anymore. You've gone too far this time. After that, we immediately called the police. Susan was taken away in a police car to explain the situation. She looked like her soul had left her body. Are you okay? I'm fine. But you? Don't worry. I'm ready for this. According to the police, the men who attacked me were also arrested. Those men all claimed they were provoked by a woman. Messages on Susan's phone confirmed this, which was the decisive evidence. Subsequently, Susan was charged as an accomplice. Did we do the right thing? Of course. You did nothing wrong, Rose. Yeah. Maddie held me gently. There's nothing else that makes me feel as safe. Later, we decided to visit Susan. She looked so thin and frail, like a different person entirely. Dad. You came. Just to see if you're truly sorry. Of course I am. I doubt that. Why is she here? This is all her fault. Maddie sighed deeply. Rose is right. It seems you haven't really changed. That's not true. I have changed. Please, believe me. You're an adult now. From here on, you need to live with the consequences of your actions. Goodbye. Maddie walked out first. Do you understand now? If you hadn't done such things. No, if you had just grown up, maybe this wouldn't have happened. What are you saying? You've been abandoned. So, do your best. Wait a minute. Hey, come back. When was the last time I felt so clear-headed? However, the wounds I've received will remain forever. But Maddie is by my side. And that's all I need. Pain ran down my left cheek along with a banging sound. I couldn't quite grasp what was happening. Why did a stranger woman just slap me? It's because your husband got me pregnant, she declared with a triumphant look on her face, which only added to my confusion. For 28 years of my life, I had always been single. A few days later, an unexpected truth comes to light. I'm Kelly, 28 years old. I work for an IT company and live alone. Far from being married, I don't even have a boyfriend. Lately, my parents press, "Quick, I want to see my grandchildren." But I'm troubled with it. Right now, I find my job really fulfilling. Therefore, I don't feel any rush to get married, and I believe that as long as I'm leading a fulfilling life, that's what matters most. However, recently, apart from the excessive expectations of my parents, I have another concern, or rather, a troubling situation. It feels like I'm being followed by someone. It might sound exaggerated to call it stalking, but every few days, I feel someone watching me intently. It started 2 months ago. After work, I took the bus to my nearest station. As I walked from the station to my house, I constantly felt someone's presence behind me. I felt a strong gaze and turned around, but no one was there. Yet, the sound of footsteps continued from behind, and no matter when I turned, I couldn't catch sight of anyone. That day, I convinced myself it was just my imagination and forcibly shrugged it off. But the same situation continued 3 or 4 days a week, and I couldn't help but feel it wasn't just my imagination. Who could be following me? And for what purpose? I haven't had any conflicts in my personal relationships. I even tried to recall if I had gotten into any trouble, but nothing came to mind. In fact, aside from work, I hardly interacted with people, so that situation was baffling. Before I knew it, I was feeling more and more afraid every day. My concentration at work even began to decline because of that. Then one day, my colleague Rala, who I usually got along with, approached me. "Hey Kelly, you've been looking down lately, are you okay? Are you feeling unwell?" "No, it's not that, just, you know. You were doing so well at work, but lately, you've been making mistakes, right? Even yesterday, you were pointed out by our boss." "I know. My concentration has been a bit." "What's wrong? It's not like you to be this down." "I'm worried." She looked at me with genuine concern. Feeling too burdened to keep it to myself any longer, I decided to confide in her. "Actually, I've been feeling like someone's been following me recently." "What? You mean like a stalker?" "Well, calling it stalking might be a bit much. But yeah, a few days a week, from the bus station to my house, I feel like I'm being followed." "That's scary. Isn't that dangerous? Knowing where you live and all, you should talk to the police." "But isn't that a bit overreacting?" "Better to do something now than regret it later. You should deal with it as soon as possible." Rala. To think she'd take my seemingly hopeless story so seriously. Maybe I was being naive, but should I really talk to the police? Her earnest expression made it clear she was genuinely concerned about me. After being persuaded repeatedly by her, I decided to visit the police on my way home that day. A few hours later, at the police station on my way from the station to my house, I confided my recent unease to the police. "Lately, I feel like someone's been following me. I've never actually seen them though." "You've never seen them? Then how do you know you're being followed?" "From the bus station to my house, I can definitely feel someone trailing me. But whenever I turn around, there's no one there." "Well, without knowing the person's description, there's not much we can do." "I know, but I really feel someone's presence." "If anything else happens, please come back. We can help more if you see who it is." "Yes, please." I was practically sent home against my will. Frustration and anger at the police for not being able to do anything swirled inside me. Although about 2 months had passed since then, the situation was still the same. I still felt followed several days a week on my way home from the station. I'd never caught a glimpse of the person, but there was one thing I'd noticed newly. The person following me was a woman. Until then, I hadn't paid much attention to the sound of footsteps, probably just regular sneakers. Yet, a few days before, I had heard the sound of heels. And that day, again, I heard the sound of heels behind me. As usual, I turned around, no one was there. But someone was definitely following me. The fact that wearing heels meant it was a woman. So, I tried to think again if there was any issue in my social circle. No matter how much I thought, nothing came to mind. Work was going smoothly, and I was not having conflicts with other employees. I didn't have a romantic partner, so there was no chance of being entangled in love troubles. I had not done anything that would warrant resentment.
Could it be a woman who cares about me? No, that's unlikely for someone like me. So for what? There's no reason for someone to follow me.
With these uneasy thoughts, time just kept passing. About a month later, I finally came face to face with her. As usual, I was walking from the station, and sure enough, I heard the sound of heels behind me. Again, I thought. I quickened my pace. Then I heard a dull sound from behind.
What was that sound?
I instinctively turned around and saw a woman lying on the ground. It seemed she stumbled over a curb and fell. She grimaced as she slowly got up. I immediately rushed over to her, the woman who was presumably my stalker, and spoke to her.
Your knee is bleeding. Are you okay?
You're the one who's been following me, right? Do you need something from me? Firstly, who are you? Just as I was about to say that, she stood up. Without saying anything, she ran back the way she came.
What's going on? She's been following me, but ignores me when I talk to her. If she had something to say, she should just say it.
The woman, who appeared to be a few years younger than me, was undoubtedly the person who had been following me. But I didn't recognize her face, nor did I know her name. All I could tell was that she was a petite, younger woman. Why was she following me? Why wouldn't she answer when I asked her what she wanted? Who on earth was she? The reality was far from what I had imagined, leaving me somewhat deflated. The fear I had felt until then had almost vanished, leaving only questions. A few days later, as the identity of my stalker became clearer, my wariness faded. Knowing the stalker was a petite woman somehow made me feel less threatened. That day, I was aware of footsteps behind me as usual, but I didn't think much of it and continued on my way home. However, I felt the footsteps quicken, unlike usual.
What? They seem faster than before. Am I going to be caught up?
A trickle of sweat ran down my back. Before I knew it, I was walking faster, but her pace didn't slow down. If I sped up, the steps would quicken in response. I was sure it would catch up if that continued. So, I decided to stop abruptly. Confirming that the footsteps also stopped, I turned around forcefully. There was no one there. But on closer inspection, I could see white heels peeking out from behind a pole. I slowly approached and saw the same woman, who had silently left before. I stood in front of her, legs slightly apart, and looked straight into her eyes as I confronted her.
What's your purpose? Following me around like this every day? Silent again? You wouldn't be following me for no reason, right?
Enough already. What do you want? If you keep ignoring me, I'll take you straight to the police. It was then, as I said so forcefully, that I felt a sharp pain on my left cheek. I couldn't comprehend what was happening.
What? Did I just get slapped?
The pain in my slapped cheek intensified. Holding my cheek, I muttered, "That hurts." And then I heard a scoff. When I instinctively looked up, there she was, smirking maliciously. With that unpleasant smile, she said, "Because your husband got me pregnant."
What? What did you just say?
Didn't you hear?
I said I'm pregnant with your husband's child. My husband's child. Did you just say that?
Yeah.
How does it feel to have your husband taken by me?
Confusion clouded my mind. I didn't have a husband. First of all, I was not even married. Trying to clear the misunderstanding, I blurted out,
"No, wait. You must be mistaken."
But as soon as I said that, a dull pain struck my right cheek. Of course, it was her. She had slapped my cheek with the opposite hand that time. That moment, the anger I had been holding back exploded. I had tried to keep things calm, assuming she was a stranger, but then I had reached my limit. I glared at her and said firmly, "What are you doing? How dare you slap someone out of the blue? What kind of person are you? Oh, scary. Are you that upset because a young and pretty lady stole your husband? Stop talking nonsense. I told you, you've got the wrong person." Stop joking. Anyway, can you just get a divorce? There's a baby from your husband in my belly, you know. Ignoring my words entirely, she kept pushing her narrative. My irritation peaked, and I stated the plain truth. I'm not married, you know. Huh? At my statement, her expression froze. Seizing the moment of her confusion, I pressed on relentlessly. Did you hear? I said I'm not married. I don't even have a boyfriend, actually. Hold on. What are you talking about? That's my line. You're talking about your husband's child, but I don't have a husband. I'm not even married. Don't tell me you're pretending not to know. Just so you know, I won't be fooled. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't care whose child you're carrying, but it has nothing to do with me. Got it? Now go back home. With that, I left her behind and continued on my way home. I could hear her screams from behind, but I ignored them and headed to my house.
What was that all about? Husband and child. Who is she mistaking me for? I'm exhausted from all this.
Once home, I lay on the sofa for a while, but the fatigue didn't fade. Feeling too tired to cook, I decided to go to the grocery store nearby. After shopping at the store about a 5-minute walk from the house, I stepped outside. Suddenly, large raindrops began to fall.
Oh no. What should I do? I didn't bring an umbrella.
While sheltering from the rain at the store, someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around to find a familiar-looking man. I think you're... I'm Tommy. We live in the neighbor. This kind of thing has happened before, right? I'm Kelly. Thanks for last time. My pleasure. I can walk you to the house today too, if you like. Thank you, that would be great. No problem, come on under the umbrella. The man who offered me shelter under his umbrella was Tommy, a resident of the same area. I knew of him because we often saw each other at the bus station on weekday mornings, but I didn't know his name. A few months ago from that day, I had also been caught in the rain while shopping at the grocery store. He had happened to be there and offered to share his umbrella. I remembered having walked back to the house with him under one umbrella. For that day, once again, I found myself under his care. As we chatted about trivial things on our way to the house, suddenly from behind, a shouting voice rang out. Hey! I turned around instinctively, and there was the stalker woman. She approached and grabbed my collar. This awful woman. So you are Tommy's woman after all. Last time and this time too. Sharing an umbrella together, unforgivable. Let go! Tommy is just a neighborhood. Don't play dumb. Tommy is going to marry me. You better disappear fast. Get a divorce. She gripped my collar, shook me violently, and then pushed me away forcefully. I stumbled and fell hard. Tommy rushed to me and asked, "Are you okay?" As I nodded, the stalker woman shouted at him, her face red with rage. "Tommy! Why are you caring about this woman? I'm serious about you. Stop it. To begin with, I don't even like you. No. I won't give up. Break up with her quickly. She's not my woman. She just lives in the same area." Huh? You've just been misunderstanding and resenting her for nothing. I'm not even married. I just lied about being married because you kept stalking me. That can't be true, can it? As she kneels in confusion, Tommy stares at her sternly. Looking down at her in the rain, he says coldly, "I only picked up your wallet once and took you to dinner as a thank you. But you've been persistently following me ever since. To be clear, you're a nuisance. Please, stop involving yourself with me." Wait, Tommy! The atmosphere was so nice during dinner. That's just what you think. I never felt that way. You keep contacting me despite my ignoring you. If I'm ignoring you, take the hint. I will never like you. If you show up in front of me again, I'll take you to the police. After his blunt statement, the woman slowly stood up. Staggering, she turned on her heel and left. Since then, she never appeared in front of me again. I later learned from Tommy that he had only dined with her once and there was no romantic relationship. She probably mistook me for his wife and fabricated lies to break us up. I was merely caught in the middle, an utterly bothersome situation. Afterward, I got the woman's name and contact information from Tommy and consulted a lawyer. Even though it was a misunderstanding, I decided to claim damages for being suddenly slapped. A few weeks later, Tommy said, "I want to apologize for what happened." And we went out for a meal. That led to us regularly going out together, and recently, he asked me out. It was a terrible start, but in a way, I have her to thank for bringing me closer to him. Though the beginning was the worst, I'm grateful to her for leading me to meet him. Kelly, I'm really sorry about that time. I dragged you into my problem. It's okay. I don't mind anymore. Besides, I'm happy now. If anything comes up, feel free to talk to me. I'm truly your boyfriend now. Thank you. I'll count on you if anything happens. There might be more people like her in the future. But I'm sure he'll protect me. And one day, I hope to build a happy family with him. I don't want to take care of you, so live here. With those words, I felt the door close behind me. I heard the sound of the lock turning, and a bad feeling made me panic. Steve? Hey, you're there, right? Steve? Though I called out in anxiety, there was no response. In the silent space, my panic only grew. Steve? Please, answer me. Already uneasy in the unfamiliar wheelchair, I mishandled it and tumbled out of it. Ouch! Why? How could this happen? I had to voice it out or the anxiety would crush me. Where am I, exactly? Am I just going to die here alone? Right when tears of frustration and sadness wouldn't stop. Cindy! With the sound of the door opening, I was enveloped in warmth. 3 days later, a TV show was featuring a certain store. Listening to show. Hey! Explain yourself. The door burst open, and the voice of the person I hated most in the world resounded. I am Cindy, a 32-year-old who works hard every day at a major company. Since I was young, I had a dream. Captivated by it on TV as a child, I became obsessed. Since then, I've studied hard to achieve that dream, and now I'm working hard every day to save up. Working hard is good, but don't overdo it, okay? Thanks. But working towards my dream is really fun. I guess so. I love seeing you so happy, too. That was what my husband, Steve, said to me, smitten by my dedication. He was a colleague at my company. Enamored by my hard work, Steve supported my dream after hearing about it. His persistence won me over, and we started dating. After a few years together, we got married. Both of us working at major companies meant that even allocating part of my salary to my dream savings didn't impact our lifestyle. I also had companions chasing my dream with me as well. Cindy, how's it going on your end? Going well. How about you, Mindy? Of course. Just a little more to reach our goal. My best friend, Mindy. I met Mindy in high school. Hey, don't you think our names sound similar? Do they? Yeah, the spelling's different, but they sound alike. The similarity in the pronunciation of our names was what sparked our friendship, and discovering we shared the same dream quickly solidified it. Since then, we've been supporting each other in our efforts to realize our dream someday. Before I knew it, my dream had become our dream. My monthly highlights. It's checking the bank account for my dream savings. The more the money accumulates, the closer we get to our dream, and it excites me. But one day, as I checked it, I froze. Somehow, about $5,000 had been withdrawn from the dream savings. Only 2 people knew about this bank account. Steve and Mindy. Of them, only Steve knew where the debit card was. I went straight home and confronted Steve, who was relaxing. Hey! Did you withdraw from my dream savings without asking? Just borrowed it. Borrowed? You know how hard I've been saving for this, right? Shut up. I'll pay it back eventually. Steve's unapologetic attitude nearly made my head explode with anger. Besides, isn't it ridiculous for a woman over 30 to chase dreams? What? Lately, Steve has been mocking my dream like this. Bringing up my age, saying if I have time to chase dreams, I should contribute to making myself look younger. Steve, you used to support me. And it doesn't give you the right to use my money however you want. Money is shared between husband and wife, so it should be fine. That account has money I saved since before we were married. Where did you put my debit card? I somehow managed to get the debit card back from Steve. Now, I have to hide this debit card somewhere it can't be found. Stop nagging! With that much in there, it's fine to use a little. Steve's muttering filled my head with rage. I pay for all the living expenses and rent. I don't want to hear complaints from someone who doesn't contribute a penny. There's a big difference in salary between me and Steve. I'm older and started working earlier, but even so, I've managed to keep my performance top-notch. Conversely, Steve's performance has been declining. That's because you were the one who taught me the job. I was your mentor years ago. Whose fault is it for not growing since then? You can't sell youth, so as an older woman, you have to work hard to earn. Lately, we've been fighting like this all the time. Years ago, Steve used to encourage me, saying to keep going. Maybe it started when I turned 30. Around then, he began calling me an old lady and frequently brought up my age. If I tried to argue back, Steve would sulk and ignore me for a while, so I always ended up apologizing to keep the peace. But this time, I didn't feel like apologizing. After a big fight with Steve, I called Mindy. I'm sorry, Mindy. We promised to save together. It's Steve's fault. Don't worry about it, Cindy. Mindy forgave me with a laugh, and I apologized again, feeling both grateful and sorry. We were so close to our goal, but now it feels further away because of Steve. I couldn't help but sigh, and it must have been audible over the phone. I could hear Mindy laughing. You know, happiness will run away, you know? Cindy, unlike me, you're married. A little trouble is inevitable. $5,000 is not a little trouble. It was a good decision to have a separate bank account for our savings with Mindy. Really? We'll have to be more careful with Steve from now on. Exactly. Then we moved on to more trivial conversations. At that time, I never imagined such a thing could happen, and I believed our friendship would never break. One day, I was on my way to a sales appointment as usual. While crossing the street and reviewing the contract details in my head, a car ran a red light and headed straight for me. Distracted by my thoughts, I noticed the car too late and felt my body being thrown by the strong impact. I could hear the noise of the surrounding commotion and the car driving away. Unable to move due to pain, I listened and then lost consciousness. Cindy! Cindy!
Mindy.
Cindy! Are you awake? Wait, I'll call the doctor now. Mindy's voice, sounding close to tears, brought me back to consciousness. I tried to open my eyes, but it was pitch dark. I couldn't see anything. I vaguely sensed Mindy bustling around. Not understanding what had happened, and unable to move my legs, I was filled with anxiety. Then, the doctor called by Mindy explained the situation to me. I know it's a shock, but please try to stay calm. Your eyes were damaged in the accident. In short, the accident left me blind and paralyzed from the waist down. I would never be able to see again, and I was facing a lifetime in a wheelchair. Why me? I was so close. I was plunged into the depths of despair. Now, I couldn't even chase the dream I had been so intent on pursuing. As I wallowed in sadness, Mindy stayed by my side. Cindy, I won't give up. I'll work hard for both of us. I'll make our dream come true and give it to you as a gift. So don't give up. Honestly, I thought about just disappearing, but Mindy kept encouraging me, and I somehow managed to reconsider. Steve, hearing that I had regained consciousness, rushed over and stayed by my side throughout my hospitalization, since I couldn't see anything. He listened to my anxieties, helping me distract myself a little. I was truly grateful to both of them. But that was only at first. Mindy stopped visiting me. In my current state, I couldn't even contact Mindy. What pushed me further down was Steve's attitude. At first, Steve, who had been considerate and talked about various things, gradually spoke less and visited less often. Even when he came to the hospital room, he seemed to be busy with his mobile phone, and all I could hear was the tapping. Steve, how's work lately? It's none of your business. He would respond indifferently to any attempt at conversation. That attitude hurt me deeply, and what troubled me most was Mindy's absence. In fact, as a secure place Steve could never access, I had entrusted Mindy with the debit card for our dream savings account. I didn't want to believe it, but had Mindy stopped coming because she got hold of that debit card? And Steve, did he truly not care about me at all? These thoughts made me increasingly despondent. I spent my days in the hospital room, crying alone. As my hospital stay went on, the thought of going home filled me with anxiety. However, it's okay. I'm here for you. Hearing Steve speak kindly again, I chose to be discharged. Then, as we drove, I noticed something was off. The hospital and our home were only a few minutes apart by car. But the trip was clearly taking too long. Steve, where are we going? There's a place I want to stop by first. I wanted to go straight home, and venturing out without my sight was daunting. Sensing my reluctance, Steve spoke in a gentle voice. The place we're going is made to be enjoyable even without sight. I thought it would be a nice distraction. It's related to your dream. My dream? The first thing that came to mind was Mindy. She had said she would work hard for both of us to make our dream come true and give it to me as a gift. I'm sorry to say this, Cindy, but Mindy betrayed you. What? Mindy? How? I asked back, my voice trembling. I found out that Mindy disappeared after getting hold of your debit card. I've been searching to get it back, but it's been difficult. That's why I've been distant in the hospital room. I'm really sorry. According to Steve, his curt behavior was because he was searching for Mindy without telling me. His fiddling with the mobile phone was him reaching out to acquaintances for any sightings. At that moment, I was too shocked to believe Mindy could betray us, and my mind went blank. I didn't notice the odd feeling I would have caught under normal circumstances. But we finally found her. Let's go together and get back at her. Okay. And I nodded in agreement. After a while, Steve's car continued towards an unknown destination. Could it be okay to come this far? As I was consumed by anxiety. We're here. The car stopped. With Steve's help, I got out of the car and felt being pushed in a wheelchair into some indoor space. Hey, Steve, where is this? It feels like there's no one around. Of course, it's an unused vacant house. Steve's presence and voice faded away. I tried to reach out for Steve, but couldn't grasp anything. Suddenly, I was overwhelmed by fear. Steve? Where are you? Behind me, I heard Steve's laughter. I don't want to take care of you, so live here. With those words, I felt the door close behind me. Then, I heard the sound of the lock turning. A bad feeling made me panic. Steve, hey, you're there, right? Steve! Though I called out in anxiety, there was no response. In the silent space, my panic only grew. Steve, please respond. Already uneasy in the unfamiliar wheelchair, I mishandled it and tumbled out of it. Ouch! Why, how could this? I had to voice it out or the anxiety would crush me. Where am I, exactly? Would I just die here, alone and unaided? Right when tears of frustration and sadness wouldn't stop. Cindy! With the sound of the door opening, I was enveloped in warmth. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Cindy. Mindy? Is that you? I could feel the arms hugging me trembling, and my right shoulder getting slightly wet. Mindy was hugging me and crying. Why was she here? What was happening? It's okay now. My questions were drowned out by Mindy's firm voice. And I was taken into Mindy's care. 3 days later, a feature on a certain store could be heard from the TV she had turned on. Listening to it. Hey! Explain yourself. The door burst open, and the voice of the person I hated most in the world resounded. Well, look who decided to show their face. Cindy, are you okay?
Yes, of course. I have something I want to say, too.
From his voice, Steve seemed to be quite panicked. Mindy and I were there to meet him.
Why are you still alive? Because I saved her, obviously.
That day, Mindy had arrived at the vacant house ahead of time and waited nearby, hidden, for us to arrive. After confirming Steve had left, she rescued me.
Don't mess with me. You said you betrayed Cindy.
Indeed, I did betray someone.
But not Cindy. The one I betrayed was you, Steve.
It turned out, right after the accident, Steve had approached Mindy, trying to start a relationship with her. Despite showing concern for me, he had made advances towards Mindy, causing her to distrust him.
He was after the debit card for your dream savings that I was holding on to. And, as it turns out, he was after my savings too.
Realizing Steve's scheme, Mindy thought it would be easy to refuse him on the spot, but doing so might have endangered me. Mindy pretended to go along with Steve's plan, acting as if she had betrayed me.
What's that supposed to mean?
Steve, apparently never suspecting he was being deceived, froze. Mindy had gained his trust by handing over an empty bank account's debit card to Steve after moving her savings to another account. She skillfully prevented Steve from checking the account, a maneuver that made me admire Mindy even more. While Steve was off guard, she bought the vacant house where he left me.
If we leave her in that vacant house, she'll never be found. That way, everyone will think she just disappeared, unable to accept her reality.
That was how she persuaded Steve. As a result, Steve, without any suspicion, left me in the vacant house and Mindy safely retrieved me.
It's good you're simple-minded. Thanks to that, we could establish our dream, the Old Folkhouse Cafe.
Yes, our dream was to run an old folkhouse cafe. Mindy had renovated the purchased vacant house and it had just opened yesterday. Until a moment ago, it was being featured live on TV. The broadcast that had been on TV was from that time. Steve must have seen the live broadcast and rushed over.
No way, it can't be. Me, deceived? Excuse me.
As Steve was in turmoil, a group seemed to enter the cafe. Mindy whispered to me that it was the police, apparently called by her.
We need to talk. I didn't do anything. Take this as evidence, please. Thank you for your cooperation.
Then, I could hear Steve being loudly taken away by the police. I thought I heard him calling for my help, but I ignored it.
He's gone.
Yes. The cafe became quiet once Steve was gone.
Cindy, what's wrong?
I'm sorry, I couldn't help but start crying. We had finally managed to open the old folkhouse cafe of our dreams. We had worked so hard to create a space where everyone could relax. Yet, in this condition, I would only drag Mindy down, not just with management but in every aspect. While it might be a novelty now and attract customers, there's no guarantee they will keep coming. Thinking about it, I couldn't stop my tears.
There's still hope. Maybe you can still see.
I had undergone eye surgery at the time of the accident. Because of that, I was currently wearing an eye patch. However, I was told there was a high likelihood of being blind, or at the very least, having significantly reduced vision. Between my lower body being immobile, the suspicion of Mindy's betrayal, and Steve's behavior, I was mentally too frail to remove the eye patch and had been too scared to take it off. Because of that, I had convinced myself I was blind.
I fulfilled the promise and made our dream come true. So, let's go to the hospital together.
I nodded to Mindy's words. Then, on a day off, Mindy took me to the hospital. There, when the eye patch was removed, I could capture light.
With glasses or such, we can adjust this.
Mindy rejoiced as if it were her own victory. I couldn't see her face, but it made me think maybe I could try a little harder. After that, I divorced Steve. Thanks to Mindy's thorough investigation, the reason for Steve's tyrannical behavior was uncovered. He had been cheating on me with a younger colleague, who was also the very person who had hit me with her car. Both of them were arrested for their respective crimes and ordered to pay me a large sum in compensation.
How dare he make my best friend suffer? I'll never forgive you. Mindy, calm down. There's nothing but hell waiting for him now. No need for you to intervene.
During a TV interview, I accidentally let slip the reason I ended up in this state, including the part about being abandoned by Steve. Naturally, Steve was fired. After his release, nothing but miserable days awaited him. On my part, things were looking up. The compensation allowed me to buy good glasses. With my vision partially restored, my motivation soared. I'm still in a wheelchair, but what I can do has significantly increased. All the handicrafts in our shop are made by me, and I keep adding to them even as I handle the administrative work. The handicrafts have been well received by customers, contributing to the shop's profits. Just when I had almost forgotten about Steve's existence, as the shop was thriving. Cindy, I'm truly sorry. Steve showed up at the shop before opening time. He came to apologize deeply, but we ignored him and continued with our opening preparations.
Hey, you. Me? Aren't you the guy who abandoned his wife? What do you want now? Aren't you ashamed to show your face here?
A customer glared at Steve, who then left. I smiled in gratitude to the customer who had chased him away.
Thank you, Chester.
Not at all, glad I came early. He's a regular at the shop and was the cameraman when the TV crew came. Since the broadcast, he's continued to visit as a customer.
Today, I'll also be making drinks. Please do order some. Really? I'm looking forward to it. You two are so transparent.
Mindy chuckled, sensing something. I was genuinely grateful I decided to go through with the interview that day.
Now, we need to make sure he never shows up here again.
I know a good lawyer.
Thank you. Please, I'd appreciate that.
There's no time to waste on such a man anymore. I need to keep working hard for the customers who visit us. I quickly forgot about Steve and immersed myself in work. Watched over kindly by both of them. Sometime later.
Is there something good happening? You seem very happy.
Yes, actually, I received a letter the other day. The letter mentioned that there are people who are encouraged by seeing me work. That made me so happy, I couldn't help but beam.
When you smile like that, you're truly beautiful. I like you, Cindy, just the way you are. If it's okay with you, I'd like to date you.
I was taken aback by his confession. To be honest, I was attracted to him too, so I was happy. But there was my condition to consider. After I explained my situation, he said he didn't mind. However, I wanted some time to think it over, so we left it at that for the moment.
I just want you to be happy.
That's easy to say, but...
Just make sure you won't have any regrets.
Yes, thank you. Things have been going very well for me. In stark contrast, Steve ended up in debt. He managed to find a job, but it was low-paying and he was overworked, unlike before. Moreover, it seems he's being hounded by the family of his affair partner. I wondered why the family would do that, but...
You got our daughter involved. You need to take responsibility.
Was their reasoning. Well, I'll just cheer him on from afar. It's his own doing, so I'd be troubled if he relied on me. Thanks to the lawyer working diligently, Steve couldn't reach out to me for help and seems to be suffering quite a bit.
It's his own fault,
Mindy muttered after seeing the results of the investigation. I agreed with her. Later, I remarried Chester. I chose to respond to his feelings, who accepted me for who I am. Mindy blessed our union, but it seems she has found someone good for herself too. Mindy could only afford to buy the vacant house, but with his help, she managed to renovate it into the old folk house cafe. They had been in a mutual but unspoken love for a while, hesitant because of the age difference. Hearing about us pushed them to decide on marriage.
It's thanks to you, Cindy.
It's me who should be thankful. Without you, I would have given up on life long ago. I'm really glad you were there for me. Will you keep supporting me?
Of course. I finally managed to repay you.
I tilted my head at her words.
I was saved by you back in our school days. Really?
Mindy felt isolated during middle school. She took a chance and spoke to me in high school, and we've been close ever since.
You didn't ridicule my dreams and aimed for them with me. That's why I could keep going.
Hearing this, I was on the verge of tears. I decided to cherish this bond moving forward.
First, take this $20 and go to the hospital,
because I promised Mom I'd do something for her first.
My husband said, pulling out the bill and handing it to me. I was completely taken aback by this unexpected turn of events and could only stand there dumbfounded, watching him drive away. Incredibly, he had chosen to leave his wife, who was in pain from her water breaking, to prioritize taking his mother to her hobby class. Despite the harassment I had suffered from my mother-in-law, Mary, and the tough times she put me through, I had always endured it, thinking of our unborn child. But now it was clear to me. A person who disregards their child like this doesn't deserve to be a parent. I steeled myself to face childbirth alone, enduring the increasing pains. I am Jane. Tom, whom I married right after graduating from college, is 3 years older than me, and we lead a reasonably happy married life. He was a senior at the club I belonged to in college. He seemed to have fallen in love with me at first sight when I joined as a new member, and looking back, I was embarrassingly overwhelmed by his passionate approach. As a young adult, just being a senior made him seem irresistibly cool, and I responded to his approach. We dated smoothly from 3 months after I enrolled until graduation. Even after marriage, Tom was head over heels in love with me, so I never worried about him cheating. He proudly tells his colleagues how happy he is to come home on time every day and eat the meals I cook while they're still warm, so I doubt any woman would purposely approach him. However, Tom has always been particularly kind to women, and naturally, some were drawn to him. But he has always been devoted to me, and I've never been attracted to any other man. However, there's a reason why I initially described our marriage as reasonably happy. That reason is my mother-in-law, Mary. I thought mother-in-law problems were a thing of the past, but Mary frowned the moment she saw me.
"What's with your hair? Looks like you dumped paint on it. Let me guess, you dyed it in a hurry last night, trying to look innocent? It's embarrassing. Can you leave my son and go home for today? Seriously, you knew we were meeting. You should have taken care of your hair earlier." When I first visited Tom's family before we got married, Mary said this, and I, still young, turned pale with fear. Just as Mary said, I realized the day before that my hair color was too bright, so I dyed it with Tom's help. Feeling embarrassed and frustrated at being seen through, I was down for a while after that. It was my fault for the breach of etiquette, but I wouldn't have been so upset if Mary had been a bit more restrained in her comments. Because of my hair color, I felt like I was being pushed away from Tom and was sent back home alone from my first visit to his family, so Tom called me later. "Mom was just nervous and came off too harsh. She actually likes you, Jane, so don't worry. She's in favor of our marriage and really wants you to visit home again." This time, I was irritated with Tom's carefree talk. He didn't stop Mary from making snide remarks right in front of me, and he even seemed to be defending her. There's no doubt Mary doesn't genuinely want me at her house. Would I be pressured to live with them after marriage and face daily harassment? Surprisingly, when we got married, Mary didn't suggest anything like that. I was relieved, but soon after, Mary began frequently inviting Tom to her home. "Now that you've finally graduated from a far-off university and got a job here, you get married right away. I've been so lonely. Why don't you let Jane rest and stay here for about a week?" Messages like this would arrive for Tom, and I shivered. Showing me the message, Tom asked, "What do you think?" Instead of answering, I called Mary right there. "I'm sorry, but we haven't finished unpacking and the paperwork isn't done yet either. It'll be a while before Tom can relax. I apologize." When I said this, Mary replied with nagging words. "Do the unpacking yourself? Don't always rely on my son." But I just nodded along and ended the call. Mary's offer to let me rest was just a facade. She wanted her dear son by her side. I was annoyed with Mary for lacking consideration, especially as newlyweds, and also upset with Tom for not refusing. According to Tom, Mary has always been like this. Her overprotectiveness worsened after she divorced Tom's father. When Tom decided to go to college, she cried and tried to stop him. Somehow he convinced her and went to college, but they communicated via messages and calls almost every night.
Tom trusts his mother, who raised him as a single mom, so they've always had a good relationship. It's fine to be a caring child and mother, but there should be an appropriate distance between adults. And I understand it's not good to interfere with another family's dynamics. He was serious about his job and chores and had a nice personality, so for a while, I tried to come to terms with it. But it wasn't long before I began to question the uncomfortably close relationship between the two of them. One holiday, my usually late-sleeping husband woke up earlier than me and started preparing to go out, so I asked,
"Did we have plans to go somewhere today?" "Mom and I are going shopping, Jane." "You can keep sleeping,"
he replied with an unbelievable answer. Apparently, Mary wanted to buy clothes and asked Tom to come along so she could ask for his opinion. I got angry again at my husband for agreeing without hesitation, but tried to stay calm.
"You finally have a day off. Let's do something together."
I tried to keep him walking out the door. But he shook his head and replied,
"I'd like that, but I already promised Mom, and she seems to be waiting outside already."
Shocked by his words, I headed to the entrance in my pajamas. Looking out the window to the garden, I saw Mary's bright red car parked there. Noticing my gaze, Mary turned around and smirked as she got out of the car.
"Tom, you're late. Jane's a stay-at-home wife and still asleep at this hour?"
Pathetic.
"Should I buy you an alarm clock on our way home today?"
Mary, with her bright red lipstick matching her car, laughed heartily and affectionately took my husband's hand, leading him to the passenger seat. I was dumbfounded watching their cozy interaction and could only watch as Mary's car sped away cheerfully. After this incident, my husband's behavior started to change gradually. He almost stopped doing the household chores he used to do naturally and began going to his family's house almost every weekend. His attitude towards me also changed, becoming more domineering.
"Jane, you're too lazy. When I have a day off, you just sleep with me, right? Can you call that being a housewife? You even stopped putting on makeup at home. That's not good after getting married. Mom is worried about you, too. Why don't you visit her alone once in a while?"
I don't know what Mary has been saying about me, but my husband agreeing with her is absurd. He never mentioned anything about naps or makeup during our courtship. But as my husband says, maybe Mary really is concerned about my behavior. I tried to convince myself of this several times, but knowing how Mary treats my husband like a lover, I can't help but see it as harassment towards me. However, I thought Mary's curse would change once we had a child. I found out I was pregnant shortly after I started having doubts about my husband's behavior. His eyes lit up with joy. And he held my hand, promising to work through it together. But Mary's harassment got worse after this, indirectly forcing my husband to leave me alone for trivial reasons like shopping, hospital visits, or cleaning her house. I tried explaining to my husband that Mary's actions were malicious towards me, but it backfired. He suddenly snapped with anger.
"Mom always talks about you when we meet. She says you should go back to your parents' house or take time for yourself. Getting angry over this will affect the baby in your stomach. You should appreciate Mom's concern."
He started leaving me alone more often. As morning sickness worsened, I told him I was anxious being alone and wanted him to be with me as much as possible. But to my cry for help, his reply was unbelievable.
"Even if I'm around, there's nothing I can do for you. Mom said she wanted to be alone all the time during her pregnancy and didn't even want to see Dad."
He wouldn't listen to me. And feeling physically and emotionally unstable, I resolved to fight alone. Then, one day while shopping for baby items with my husband, we bumped into one of his colleagues.
"Tom, I hear you're actively attending parenting classes. Your home library is full of parenting books, right? Today, too, accompanying your wife for shopping, you're going to be a great dad. Can't wait for your child to be born."
I was so shocked that I blurted out.
"What?"
Tom quickly interjected, laughing.
"Stop it, man."
Turns out, he's been pretending to be a devoted new father at work, making up stories. I kept quiet to avoid a scene with the colleague, but inside, I was seething with anger. He continued to prioritize Mary, and occasionally, when I ran into his colleagues, they'd envy me.
Jane, you found the ideal husband.
These incidents gradually made me start distrusting my husband's words and actions. I can't say for sure if the stress caused it, but one weekend, while I was making lunch, I noticed my pants were wet. A certain thought crossed my mind, so I rushed to the bathroom. And sure enough, I realized my water had broken. I headed to the bedroom where my husband was still sleeping and yelled to get the car ready right away. My husband, groggy at first, quickly helped me walk by supporting me under my arm when he learned my water had broken. The nurses had repeatedly told me to come to the hospital immediately if my water broke. There might be urgent danger, so my husband was also somewhat panicked. In the midst of labor pains, we finally managed to get into the car and started driving when my husband's mobile phone rang. Unable to answer while driving, I peeked at the screen amidst my pain. When I saw Mary's name, I intuitively had a bad feeling. I glared at the screen for a while, but the ringing continued the entire time. Thinking it would be quicker to explain the situation, I reluctantly answered the phone.
Tom, where are you?
It's Wednesday, it's the day for my craft class? Did you forget? Mary's voice, never used when talking to me, sent chills down my spine, but I explained to her.
Mary, actually, my water just broke, and I'm on my way to the hospital with Tom.
As soon as I spoke, Mary's tone changed dramatically, and she started yelling at me.
That's your own problem. I don't care. How dare you use your resting husband as a taxi? Put Tom on the phone. Today is the fixed day for my craft class. I had the appointment first.
Stunned, I couldn't believe Mary was saying such things, not even concerned about her grandchild. I remained silent, but Mary's shrill voice continued.
Sorry, Jane, my husband muttered.
For a moment, I thought he was apologizing for Mary's outburst. But then, I realized he had walked around to the back seat where I was lying and was opening the door. Confused and in pain, I was speechless. Then my husband said something unbelievable.
I had promised to drive Mom, so can you take a taxi or ambulance from here? I'll definitely catch up later. That's the plan. Wait. Are you prioritizing your craft class over your own child? I can't convince Mary, so you talk to her. The pain is getting worse, hurry up.
I was desperate, so I raised my voice. But my husband frowned and said,
It's a regular commitment. It can't be helped. I'm sorry I forgot to tell you about it. Here's some money, please manage with this.
He took $20 from his wallet and stuffed it into my bag. Then, he went back to the driver's seat and left me there without hesitation.
I can't believe this.
I was still close to our house. Not wanting to be seen by neighbors, I quickly looked up for a taxi. Amniotic fluid continued to trickle down my legs, and I panicked about the baby's safety. Tears welled up in frustration as I stared at my mobile phone, trembling with pain, wondering why we had to endure this.
Jane!
Startled by my name being called, I turned around and saw a familiar face.
What's wrong? You look terrible. Don't worry about talking, just get in.
This person gently supported me and helped me into the back seat of their car. Her husband adjusted the seat for me as he sat in the driver's seat. After that, my memory is fuzzy. I was rushed into a wheelchair at my regular hospital and taken to a prepared hospital room. The pain was so intense that I groaned, but I was told there was still time before the birth, so I rested there. I endured the overwhelming pain that occasionally threatened to make me lose consciousness when suddenly, my mobile phone rang. Thinking it might be a callback from my mother, who I had called on the way, I was shocked to find it was my husband. Looking at the clock, it was already evening. 3 hours had passed, and now he arrives? I decided not to answer. But after continuous ringing, I picked up the phone, irritated.
Jane! Help me! I want you to explain the situation.
Not even a word of concern for me, and now he wants help? Even if he was about to be eaten by a crocodile, I had no obligation to help the man who abandoned his child and me.
Who do you think you are? How dare you say such things?
I yelled at my husband through the mobile phone and then hung up. After a while, I faced childbirth alone. I would have liked to have my reliable husband holding my hand at such a time, but it's better off without a foolish husband who can't even prioritize things right. Instead, I received support from the kind nurses, and by nightfall, my long-awaited baby was born. Both mother and child were safe, and I fell asleep quickly due to the exhaustion. The next morning, the first thing the nurse told me when she came into my room was that my husband had come. Apparently, he came right after the birth, but since I was sleeping so deeply, the nurse kindly sent him back home. Honestly, I thought I would never want to see my husband again. But when he entered the room looking so haggard, I couldn't help but ask what happened. The person who had helped me in my suffering and taken me to the hospital yesterday was N, a neighbor I had always been close with. She had taken care of me like her own daughter since her son was about the same age as me, and she had been a great support to me when I was newly married and anxious. When I told her in the car that my husband was taking Mary to her hobby class, she was furious as if it was her own matter. Little did I know that this would ultimately corner my husband. After dropping me off, and spread the story around the neighborhood. Being the head of the neighborhood association, her words spread quickly, and her friends seemed to have confronted my husband about it. The reason my husband was begging for help was this: it seemed to have caused quite a commotion, attracting onlookers around our house. No matter how panicked he was, it was obviously too foolish of him to ask for my help in that situation. I had not heard from Mary since then, and my mind was already made up.
Sorry, but can you leave? I'm still not feeling well, and my parents are coming soon.
Both of them know about this, right? I want to apologize. Can I stay?
My husband spoke in a small, pitiful voice.
What? You wanting to apologize is not my business. I'm busy, so please leave.
Don't say that. By the way, where's the baby? I'll leave after seeing the baby.
Just leave. There are other pregnant women here, so please go.
Even though I replied coldly, he still stood there, so I turned my back and covered myself with a blanket.
I'm sorry. Please call Mom for me. I want to send her a photo of the baby. Can I call the nurse?
Unbelievably, my husband reached out and shook me. When I couldn't stand it anymore and was about to push him away.
What are you doing? Don't touch my daughter.
My parents walked into the room just in time. My mother rushed over and pushed my husband away.
How dare you shake the body of someone who just gave birth? And after doing such a thing, how could you show your face here? I'm disappointed in you. Get out of here, now.
Even I had never seen my mother so fierce, and overwhelmed by her presence, my husband finally left the room. My father followed him, and I knew he would be thoroughly scolded. During my hospital stay, I refused to see my husband and took the baby to my parents' house after being discharged. I didn't want to risk meeting him, so I told him over the phone that I wanted a divorce. I only communicated about writing the divorce papers, mailing them, and claiming compensation, ignoring anything else he said. By the way, the compensation was for the scratches and bruises I got when he forcibly removed me from the car. He tried to make excuses, but I silenced him by saying I had testimony from and her husband and photos of the injuries from that day. The lawyer said the cost for his malicious actions against a pregnant woman would be significant. While I was busy with the baby, Mary showed up at my parents' house once. The rumors spread by and didn't seem to fade, and the neighbors' gazes were cold. She blamed it all on me for not respecting our family, but my father handled everything. Both of them were scolded by my father, and I thought it would have been better if we had done this from the beginning. But to that my father said, "The head of the household doesn't easily come to the forefront." He was oddly showing off. When I got used to childcare, I invited Anne to my parents' house and introduced her to them. Being of the same age, she quickly became friends with my mother, and we agreed to keep in touch. and then told me about my ex-husband, which she heard from a friend who worked part-time at his company. Her friend, who loves gossip like Anne, seemed to have spread the story about my ex-husband to others at some point. The story spread quickly again, and his reputation plummeted. He had pretended to be a devoted new dad, and the disparity was so great that his bosses and colleagues looked at him with disdain, leading him to resign in disgrace. Becoming unemployed with no qualifications just before turning 30, my ex-husband lived in fear of the neighbors' gazes, relying on Mary's pension and savings. Years later, I almost forgot he existed, but then he called again.
Where are you? I'm in front of your parents' house right now, but the nameplate is different, isn't it?
He said this out of the blue, so I responded in kind. Can't you tell by the nameplate? I've moved. What do you want?
Moved? You're living it up with the compensation I gave you. Come back right now, let's start over. Mom wants to see you too. What you're saying makes no sense. Why would I go back to you? Still saying that? I don't want to hear anything, so don't call me.
I hung up without waiting for a response, and my phone kept ringing for a while. After finally completing the call rejection settings, messages begging for reconciliation arrived. I read them all just in case, but...
Don't you feel sorry that the child doesn't have a father? It's unfilial to not show yourself to mom after taking care of you.
He wrote such nonsensical things, so I deleted them all and changed my email address. This whole ordeal was the worst, but thankfully, it allowed me to push for a favorable divorce and penalize the other party. Having such a terrible family member is not good for the child. Thinking so, I enjoyed relaxed parenting while being supported by my parents, who had become grandparents.
Mom and Dad are taking me overseas. This is just going to be luggage, so I'll leave this behind with you. It might be hard for you, but it's a good way to kill time, right?
Kristen said with a smirk, implying her superiority to Sophia. Kelly, who married into an elite family, always boasted about her daughter Kristen. On the other hand, my family, with Sophia the same age as Kristen, come from a normal family. Influenced by Kelly, Kristen grew up flaunting her financial comfort and academic excellence, always emphasizing how different she was from Sophia. For Sophia too, this summer vacation is crucial, as she's preparing for college entrance exams. Kristen, caught up in her own excitement, left a pile of school assignments at our house and went off to her overseas trip. However, Sophia, the recipient of Kristen's spite, decides to take action. My name is Mary. I'm a working mother in a regular household, with my daughter Sophia facing exams this year. Every morning, I make breakfast, wake up Sophia and my husband Harold, hand them their lunches, and we all head out. Life was supposed to continue like this, day after day. But it quickly changed. Now, my life is filled with struggles. It's because of my sister-in-law Kelly, married to Adam, who works in a globally expanding company. Kelly, who married a rich, and her daughter Kristen, have become a source of stress. Sophia and Kristen, being the same age, were inseparable like twins during their childhood. Living not far from each other's homes, family gatherings, especially during long vacations, meant they were always together. But as Kristen started attending various classes and tutoring, their playtime significantly reduced. Gradually, we lost touch with Kelly's family, and by the time we met again, Kristen, maintaining top grades at a prestigious private school, had become Kelly's pride. In Adam's absence due to frequent business trips, Kelly enjoyed her life as an elegant housewife. With Kristen, nearly guaranteed a scholarship through school recommendations due to her grades, you could say their whole family was sailing smoothly. However, for Kelly and Kristen, with too much time on their hands, our family working parents and Sophia studying hard for general exams became an easy target for mockery. When did Kelly's assertive personality twist into something unpleasant? Her straightforward and cool attitude was lost, replaced with sending us unpleasant, boastful messages. It wouldn't matter if I was the only target. But on weekends, they started visiting, ostensibly to play with us. Bringing expensive confectionery as a pretext, clearly to disturb us, especially Sophia. We bought this cake, so let's have tea. Sophia should come and join us. Kristen, go call her, Kelly said, summoning Sophia without my permission. Of course, Sophia was studying. Soon, Sophia came down to the living room, looking displeased. Kristen, with a somewhat mean smile, nudges her.
People taking general exams have to cram a lot, right? Must be tough. But since your cousin's here to play, you should entertain her.
Well, you don't need to study, but Unlike the provocative Kristen, Sophia is shy and can't stand up for herself. All I can do is try to end the tea party quickly. I swiftly prepared the tea and hastened them to finish the cake. Meanwhile, Kelly keeps bragging about how brilliant Kristen is and how hard she works at her extracurriculars.
Isn't it odd? You're a mother and you hardly ever boast about Sophia.
Kelly suddenly said so out of nowhere. But the reason I don't retort with boastful stories is that Sophia has asked me not to. Sophia possesses many virtues that neither I nor Harold have. I always want to counter. But Sophia seems to think there's no need to let Kelly and the rest know. I tolerate and respect Sophia's wishes, responding nonchalantly.
Mom always bragged more about you than me, right? It's the same thing.
Kelly, looking satisfied, laughed it off.
Yeah, that's right.
This way everything ends as if nothing happened. Yes, our parents also favored Kelly over me, always showing more enthusiasm and expectation for her. They sided with Kelly, who married the elite Adam, all the time. I could tolerate that, but what really got to me was how they constantly compared the grandchildren, always praising Kristen. I was utterly fed up with our parents' attitude. Despite feeling a strong irritation inside, I had to endure it for Sophia's sake, day after day. Then, the children's summer vacation arrived. But with it came turmoil. Kelly's family was preparing for a month-long trip abroad. Since they seemed to be unconcerned with academic studies, we had been hearing about their proud travel plans every week. We thought about taking a trip ourselves, but Sophia was determined.
Without Kristen around, I'll be able to study in peace.
So, we dropped our plans. However, just before their departure, Kelly's family showed up at our house with a pile of assignments.
Kelly, what is all this?
Summer homework, of course. I faced them, feeling a mix of surprise and bewilderment. The massive amount of assignments, covering our table, was obviously from Kristen's school.
We're leaving soon, right? These would just be extra luggage, and Kristen doesn't have time for such tedious stuff, so we thought we'd leave it to Sophia. Yeah, it might be a bit tough for you, but give it your best shot.
Sophia and I were both stunned. Kelly and her family wore smug smiles. They didn't even try to hide their condescending looks. But did they realize how absurd their words were?
I have my own assignments, and summer courses too.
For a student facing exams, there's no time to waste on trivial things. Sophia's dream school is highly competitive. She couldn't possibly spare time for Kristen's work on top of her own studies and summer courses. Sophia tried to speak up, but Kelly cut her off.
It's Sophia's last summer in high school too, so I originally said no to this plan, you know. But you guys aren't going anywhere, right? Unlike our Adam, traveling must be hard for you guys.
Kristen joined in with a spiteful look at Sophia.
My school's on high level, so I'm not sure if Sophia can handle it, but it's a good study opportunity, right?
After their carefree remarks, they left the blank assignments and departed for their trip. Adam probably didn't know about this. He's been away for work, leaving before the summer break. Without the fair and serious Adam around, they brazenly dumped this on us. I tried talking to our parents about Kelly's outrageous behavior, but they still sided with her, making me furious.
You need to study anyways, so just do it. Kristen is giving you this chance, which makes her the better child. Sophia's not trying hard enough. Instead of complaining, why doesn't she just study quietly?
My mom said so selfishly. With Dad always agreeing with her, I realized I couldn't expect anything from our parents. Dejected, I gave up on consulting them. Sophia not getting a recommendation was largely due to her reserved nature. Those selected for recommendation slots were active in student council, clubs, and had outstanding grades. Sophia, being shy, always found it challenging. But she was distressed enough to say she could study more in the absence of Kelly's family. I was filled with seething anger. Sophia too was furious. But, unlike my vehement refusal, she reacted differently. To my surprise, she started tackling Kristen's assignments alongside her own studies.
I won't lose. If I can't beat Kristen, I can't beat the exams. Mom, I'll show them I can do it.
That way of thinking never even crossed my mind, but Sophia was determined.
I'll create work that will shut them up.
She was breathing heavily. If Kelly and Kristen returned to find the assignments untouched, they would be troubled. But my concern was how much more they would interfere with Sophia after that. Kelly and her family were looking down on us, thinking, she can't possibly do it. Well, then, we just had to surpass their expectations. Next time we're asked for something, we can just say, we're going to refuse, since we already completed that massive load of summer homework. Impressed by Sophia's positive attitude, I changed my mindset. No longer just enduring, but ready to fight back boldly, that was the only way to win against Kelly and her family. I confessed everything to Harold and persuaded him to join us as a family in tackling the tasks. Sophia and I were more than ready, but Harold, preferring to think it over, called it a day. However, within 2 days, Harold came up with a summer vacation schedule to get through the assignments. He planned not only the homework but also divided household chores among the 3 of us, set days to check progress, and even ensured Sophia had time for her own studies. He thought of everything, including breaks from the study-heavy routine. We were amazed at the precision of his hastily made plan.
Dad, you're actually amazing?
Sophia asked innocently. Harold, with a bashful smile, replied, "It's what I do every day at work." Though he seemed modest, he was the best leader for Sophia and I. As a result of our family's united effort, we finished the assignments perfectly and ahead of schedule. Sophia was able to focus on her studies, and her mock exam scores improved significantly. I was relieved to see her gaining confidence. Harold, in a great mood, picked up one particular assignment for a final check.
This French essay is outstanding. With this, you and I could go back to college.
The truth is, Harold and I couldn't pursue doctoral studies due to financial reasons. Working on this reminded us of the French literature seminar room where we first met. That was how hard we were tackling the assignments. Studying and researching really was fascinating. So fascinating that it made me worry that Kristen, who considers such things as troublesome, might miss out on this joy. Right before summer vacation ended, Kelly's family returned. They collected the assignments without much inspection, seemingly satisfied that they were just done. Their own stories seemed far more important to them. Then, a few days into the new term, an unusually cheerful Kelly and her family visited. Apparently, some of the assignments were exceptionally good, earning praise from teachers. Kelly and Kristen were proud, despite having no part in the work.
And the French essay. Next week, it will be presented as an outstanding piece in front of everyone. Which reminds me, didn't you and Harold major in French literature or something? Seems like it didn't lead to great job prospects. Anyways, since it's Kristen's assignment, she'll be the one receiving the accolades.
Kelly probably enjoyed thinking we were desperately working on just a child's homework. Kristen could hardly contain her mocking laughter, delighted with the bonus recognition. Later, Kelly sent us a photo of Kristen holding the award certificate, but I just replied, "Congratulations," and deleted the picture. However, trouble arose the following month. In the middle of the night, an enraged Kelly barged into our house. Kristen crying beside her.
Hey Mary! Write that French thing again. You did it once, so you can do it.
What? At this ungodly hour? You're asking for French. As I tried to calm down the frantic Kelly at the front door, Harold and Sophia woke up. The French essay from the summer vacation, which earned Kristen the recognition, was selected for a presentation at the cultural festival. She accepted, thinking it was just a reading, but then was told to submit a new essay for another competition. Kristen struggles with French, even simple compositions are hard for her.
So she thought, I'll just have Sophia write it again.
And imposed a deadline on Sophia without her consent. But Sophia ignored the new French essay request. The unity during summer vacation had grown into a big confidence boost for her, strengthening her trust in the family. Today, just before the festival, Sophia finally responded to Kristen, who was angrily pressing for the deadline.
I didn't write the summer vacation essay, so I don't know. Why don't you ask Mom and the others?
Kristen, always hiding behind Kelly, was essentially a timid and mean-spirited girl. She couldn't say anything directly to us. Sophia was unusually cold to her, and in a panic, she thought of consulting Kelly, but unfortunately, she was out at a mom friend's party and didn't get home until very late at night. When Kelly got home, Kristen was waiting and crying, confessing about the essay. Kelly, who had no intention of going to the cultural festival, calling it child's play, was therefore uninformed and shocked. Without caring that it was midnight, she rushed over to our house in a panic.
So, it's about that French essay.
Make a new one, please.
Poor Kristen, she's been deceived by Sophia.
It seemed that was the situation. Honestly, I was surprised at Kelly's audacity to leave such a big problem entirely up to us. Sophia, watching Kelly and the others screaming at the front door, remained cool and unimpressed. Anyway, we no longer had a reason to write a new essay. I recommended admitting honestly that she couldn't write.
I can't let her do something so pathetic,
Kelly retorted. But our family firmly continued to refuse.
We've done our duty with the summer assignments. We won't do anything more. Enough is enough, or we'll call the police, or Adam, before that.
With Harold's words, Kelly suddenly fell silent and took Kristen home with her. A few hours later, our home phone rang. It was our displeased mom back home. Apparently, Kelly had gone crying to her parents right after.
You should write Kristen's essay, Mom said.
But maybe because she was woken up at an unreasonable hour, Mom was complaining differently than usual, not taking Kelly's side.
Seriously, both Kelly and Kristen are the worst. Kelly is always angry, and Kristen is always just tagging along. Calling in the middle of the night without even considering the inconvenience of others.
The phone call continued with complaints about Kelly. Mom might be a victim in her own way, but she just seemed to be looking down on Kelly. I quickly refused to help with the essay. We no longer wanted to be involved with them. Later, they somehow managed to finish the French essay using a translation app. Naturally, the quality was miles apart from the summer assignment. The teachers were in an uproar over the poor quality. There were even suggestions that the award-winning assignment might have been plagiarized, and Kristen was questioned.
That essay you submitted for the festival, I've never seen such poor quality. We've discussed it with other teachers, and we think we need to verify if you really wrote your summer vacation essay yourself. I did it, teacher. I really did. I didn't plagiarize, I swear. If that's true, there's no way your essay would be this poorly written. The simple grammar and spelling mistakes are glaring. It's as if it was hastily written in a panic to meet the deadline. For a high school student, anyway, you'll have to explain properly.
After being repeatedly questioned by the teacher without her mother's protection, Kristen finally confessed to having someone else do all her assignments. As a result, her grades were reassessed. The presentation at the cultural festival was, of course, cancelled, and she was given a suspension, with more assignments than those from the summer vacation. Her internal grades were significantly reduced. The details of the assignment commission were also recorded in her report, and it seemed the incident was over. But that was not the end. Following the severe reprimand she received, classmates started confessing problems with her school life. Turns out, Kristen had been targeting poor or timid kids, throwing money at them to forcefully do her assignments. It was revealed that those who couldn't resist because of poverty or those humiliated and laughed at when called out by Kristen's group brought the issue to light. The school tried to settle the matter quietly. To clarify the situation, Kristen underwent several interviews and investigations. This was no mere issue for a report card. The incident led to the cancellation of Kristen's designated school recommendation. Since the second-ranking student took her place, Kristen was forced to take general entrance exams, but she had long lost any time to study at school. The season quickly turned to exam season, and, as a result of her lack of study, she failed everything. On the other hand, since Kelly and her family hardly visited our house after the cultural festival, Sophia, who had diligently studied, got into a university. Her efforts paid off, and she got into the national university she wanted. Our house was wrapped in a celebratory mood, and I made a lavish dinner to celebrate. Kelly, without changing her heart, forced Kristen into a gap year, fearing they would be seen as a family that couldn't send their daughter to college. Kristen, maybe due to her pride, started studying at home but made no progress. The atmosphere in Kelly's house grew worse by the day, with constant parent-child fights, but all they blamed was us. Adam finally became suspicious of Kristen's attitude, which seemed to target Sophia excessively. He was completely unaware of the incident Kristen had caused at school. But once it was revealed, Adam was deeply shocked. "I can't believe it. Kristen has grown into a person who looks down on others, flaunting her wealth and just taking what's good." Kelly had baseless absolute confidence in her parenting. Adam trusted her, but it was Kristen who had caused an incident involving the school and several classmates. Desperate, he tried to convince them to at least apologize to our family, but their pride got in the way, and they refused. They wouldn't bow their heads, and instead, kept trying to put the blame on us. Adam, hearing bad things about us every day, came to despise his wife and child from the bottom of his heart and eventually decided to divorce. Kelly and Kristen, kicked out of their luxurious house, decided to return to their parents' home. Kelly thought they would be welcomed since they brought cute Kristen, but things didn't go as she planned. Our parents, who always supported her, started treating Kristen almost like a jinx because of the multiple problems she caused. And their attitude changed drastically. They had always been harsh on Sophia but now turned to her with kind voices, desperately trying to please her. They even tried to send her expensive gifts. This confused both me and Sophia. "For your successful admission, how about we buy you a luxury brand bag? You've worked so hard, you deserve all the luxury." "Yeah, unlike Kristen, it's okay if it's a bit expensive, tell your grandpa what you want." Their parents praised Sophia and disparaged Kristen. Sophia had long lost her affection for her grandparents and wouldn't be appeased with a brand bag. Neither me nor Sophia wanted to get back at Kelly and her family for what they had done. We didn't want to look down on them, so we refused the gift even if it was for celebration. Why were our parents trying to please us? It seemed to be related to Kelly and her family coming back. "Kelly's back, right? We want you to help her. For the family. You know, we're getting old, and there are household chores." My mother hesitated on purpose. They couldn't handle Kelly and her family, so they were calling us to take care of them. But we had long lost any desire to see Kelly and her family's faces. Not just me, but my whole family refused and didn't step into my parents' house. Moreover, we had no intention of visiting them anymore. To my parents who were desperately trying to please us at our front door, Sophia smiled back and said, "We're moving. We're not coming back to this town, so take care of Kristen and her family. I have university, so please don't bother us anymore. Goodbye." What? Our parents could only stand there with mouths agape. Yes, we had decided to move altogether after that summer vacation, regardless of the exam results. And so, we cut ties with my parents and Kelly's family and headed to a new town. The ones left behind are reportedly fighting every day at my parents' house. Since the divorce with Adam was finalized, their living standards plummeted, and Kelly, with no face to show to her mom friends, became increasingly reclusive. Without jobs, the mother and the daughter blamed each other in a nasty fight, causing uproar with my parents almost every day. As for us, we are expanding our social circle smoothly at the new place. Sophia studies seriously at the university, immersing herself in seminar research. She has made new friends in addition to her high school ones and looks happy going to the university every day. It was a year of mostly studying, but now Sophia has grown enough to balance both study and play. I hope she goes out more from now on. Although the moving expenses were a bit of a burden, we have enough savings for her to choose her favorite path. The unreasonable task of the summer vacation assignment was an absurd incident, but someday we'll be able to laugh about it, saying, "Remember when that happened?" By then, we'll remember not the malicious faces of Kelly and her family, but the unity and effort of our own family.